via the BBC Sport websites. We'll be focusing back on the football shortly, but we've also got full commentary of the Italian Grand Prix in Monza on the BBC Sport website today. It gets underway in exactly an hour's time, and it's beautifully set up. Britain's Lando Norris on pole again for McLaren. Max Verstappen way back in 7th in his Red Bull. 70 points between them in the World Championship standings. Let's bring in our F1 team. We've got presenter Jenny Gow, commentator Harry Benjamin, and driver Alice Powell. Good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
Hello. Jenny, the reason I'm mentioning the World Championship standings is even though that is a huge gap, it's starting to feel relevant and possible, isn't it? Just about.
Game on, I reckon. 70 points. I mean, there's 9 races still to go, including today's. And okay, it would mean a huge reverse in form, but actually at the moment with Max Verstappen starting 7th, that gap could shrink quite quickly. The win is 25 points, second is 18 points, that's a gap of 7. Get the extra lap, the fastest lap point, that's 8. So to claw that back, even if they finish 1-2, is a big challenge. But imagine if Verstappen finishes 7th and Norris finishes first. I haven't done the maths. I should have done that. Harry Benjamin is far more prepared than me. I'm sure
we're
he's
about
done
to find out, is he?
I've not done the maths.
Well, I have today. I have, Harry, don't worry. Basically, if Lando Norris wins every race this season and Max Verstappen finishes 2nd in every race, let's just take out for now the bonus point for fastest lap. Verstappen still wins the title. So that's kind of why it still needs something really big to happen. But the point is direction of travel, isn't it?
The momentum is with Lando Norris, absolutely. But the other thing to mention as well is Piastri is right there with him on the front row. Last time out in Zandvoort, he wasn't there. Piastri should have locked out the front row in qualifying with Norris. And so Norris was almost, with the bad start, was left to have to fight and fend off Verstappen, and ultimately couldn't do that to begin with. Of course, he then came through and won the race by miles. This time around, though, Piastri is there with him. And I do think that Piastri has a big part to play now. It's a big gap to close for Lando Norris. And while Piastri has been saying things like he is still in the hunt for the championship mathematically, to be honest, 70 points between Norris and Verstappen is still a massive gap. And so I think Piastri, with being the young driver in the team and being in only his 2nd season, he has a crucial part to play in keeping the others at bay, particularly if Verstappen is able to crawl his way through, because we expect Verstappen's race pace to be much better than where he's qualified. Piastri could be crucial today in the Grand Prix.
19 points. Producer Joe, we have to thank for his fast maths. 19 points if they finish how they start today without fastest lap. That is a massive amount to claw back all of a sudden.
It is, but this is Verstappen we're talking about. He was livid with his qualifying yesterday and really wasn't happy. You could see frustration of him crossing the line, banging the steering wheel. He's not going to want to finish there at all. I mean, none of the drivers are going to want to finish there, are they, that are starting in that position? He'll be gunning forward, but this is a bottleneck into this turn 1, and with cold brakes and low downforce, it's so easy to lock up. We've seen in the support races already today several crashes going into turn 1, and Verstappen, he's right in the thick of it there in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, this is that moment, Alice, when I say take us into the car with your unique experience. Because you're right, and Lando Norris was asked about this after his lap that put him on pole. That chicane, that start to the race is really dramatic. But actually, Lando's had problems translating pole into lead after the first corner anyway. Is that something that can get in your head a little bit?
A little bit. I mean, the beauty of F1 is they get to have practice starts after each practice session. So he would have had 3 practice starts prior to the race. Actually, make that 4, because he'll do one at the end of the pit lane before he goes out to the grid. So he would have digested all the data, and the team would have dived in and had a look at what they could have fixed that helped the drivers there. Piastri, remember, he didn't get a great start either, and the McLarens are blocking out the front row. So maybe we may end up see Russell charging down into the lead into turn 1, or even Leclerc. I mean, certainly the Tifosi would absolutely go wild here at Monza for that.
Yeah, one Ferrari win here in the last 13 years, and that was Charles Leclerc in 2019. He starts fourth today, a place ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz. Thank you very much, guys. Full commentary of the Italian Grand Prix from beautiful Monza starts at 2:00. You can listen to it on the BBC Sport website. Right, we'll be focused back in on the football ahead of Newcastle.
5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to the Temple of Speed. It is the Italian Grand Prix, round 16 at Monza. The grandstands are full. The grid is full. And we are full of excitement for what could be the race of the season. Harry Benjamin, just making sure you're listening and paying attention, our lead F1 commentator. I mean, Lando Norris, pole position, right beside him, Oscar Piastri, McLaren 1-2, then behind him, George Russell, then the two Ferraris, Charles Leclerc and the birthday boy, Carlos Sainz, 30 today, and Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez. I mean, what a top 8 it is, and any of those, with one exception, could potentially win this race.
You're absolutely right. Formula One is in... Look, I'm always going to be the first to bat the drum for Formula One, and it is in a really good place at the moment.
Do you kind of like it?
But equally, if you listen to the podcast post Zandvoort, I did also say, well, it was a bit of a boring race because Norris won by 22 seconds. But that's what happens in Formula One. It fluctuates. But right now, compared to where we were at the start of the season, what has happened? You know, these regulation changes that were brought in a few years ago, the ground effect era, pronounced Red Bull back at the top and their dominance. And now, just a couple of years on, looking at the Italian Grand Prix grid, it feels like it's done a real flip of the switch. And it's not a McLaren domination all of a sudden either. It was close. You know, any of the top 6 could have got pole position yesterday. And the surprise, as you allude to there, is the fact that neither Red Bull, and the more surprise that Max Verstappen didn't pull something out of the bag in the final part of qualifying. The team seemed to be at a bit of a loss to explain why. They were progressing through qualifying, but we got to remember the entire track has been resurfaced, degradation is higher, the balance of that Red Bull doesn't seem to be anywhere near the sweet spot they're used to. All is not well at Red Bull, but I do expect Verstappen to make a case throughout the race today.
Well, he is 70 points ahead of Lando Norris in the title fight, but constructors is only 30 points between Red Bull at the top and McLaren, and McLaren are 1-2 for this race. Can they keep it that way? That's the big question. Alice Powell is our F1 expert. You know what it's like to sit in the car. You know what it's like to try and keep pole. He has to stay in front. He hasn't been able to do it 4 times. This is 5th time lucky.
Possibly.
Give us faith.
I mean, both McLarens didn't get a great start last time out. They've had plenty of opportunities to get practice starts over this weekend. They would have had 3 opportunities in free practice, so after each free practice session the drivers get to do a practice start at the end of the sort of grid. They will go onto the grid. He would have done one in before coming to the grid, should I say, here. So he's had plenty of opportunities to try and resolve the issues. He won't really be worrying about that. He'll know, plain and simple, if you're starting from pole, you've got to try and get a good start to keep the lead. Simple as that. Doesn't matter who you are or how your starts have been going. So he knows that's super important. It's a tricky run down into turn 1. They're running lower downforce. Okay, it's quite hot temperatures here in Monza, with the air temperature 33, track at 53. But also making sure that the brakes are up to temperature. We've seen in Formula 2 and Formula 3 this weekend collisions in all of the races going down into turn 1. There was actually one in Formula 2 before they reached the turn 1. So it's going to be super tricky, and really important regardless of where you're starting to get a good start.
We've just been watching Lando Norris in his papaya overalls, an ice wrap around him. He looked to be breathing slightly dramatically. He's obviously got the weight of the world on his shoulders. He desperately wants a good start. Let's hear from him before this race. He's speaking to Vicky Piria.
Ciao Lando. So that, first of all, congratulations for that amazing pole. You were a little disappointed. Does that mean that it's going to be, you're confident for the win?
Nope. No, not at all.
You're not confident?
It just wasn't a perfect lap, but that's all. We're still on pole, and I'm very happy. So excited to see what we can do today.
The start here is pretty tricky. There's a lot of space between the start right here and the first corner. But there are a lot of opportunities later in the next laps. Do you expect to start with it? Is it going to be like a push race from the beginning?
I don't know yet. It's hard to predict so much. So I think it's a long race. No one knows really what's going to happen, not even us. So a bit of it is just figuring it out along the way. But it's a race where trying to control the race will be an advantage. So if we can stay at the front, then it's perfect.
There's been a lot of work to get to this moment with McLaren. When you were working hard at the beginning of the year, did you expect to get the car this fast?
No, probably not. But the team have done an amazing job. So hats off to everyone in McLaren. They've outperformed everyone, and that's great to see. It's great to be part of. But a day like today is my job to go out and perform again. So qualifying is one thing, but the race is another, and we need to have a good day today.
So the goal today is to win, fastest lap, and do what you've done in Zandvoort.
No, our goal today is a 1-2. That's the goal. Of course, yes to win, but a 1-2 will be even better.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
So 1-2 is on the cards for them. It's what they would like. They're having a decent weekend so far, McLaren are, aren't they?
Yeah, they are on pole and a win for the IndyCar as well yesterday, Pato Award, and there's another race for IndyCar this evening as well. And right now they're locking out the front row, second front row lockout of the year, back-to-back pole positions for Lando Norris. But as Vicky Puri in the interview there and Lando Norris said, it is all about the starts for the McLaren at the moment. And what's the distance down to pole? It's 476 metres from pole to turn one, and the tow here is massive. Even on that short run down, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Russell or Leclerc jumping and challenging for those front positions into turn one if Norris and Piastri struggle.
Alice, we have to talk team orders. Is it now time for Zak Brown as the team boss to implement those and make sure Piastri is supporting Norris?
Piastri will say no, but I think Zak Brown will probably say yes. They've both got their win in Formula One now. We saw the favours be repaid, if you want to call it a favour, back in Budapest. So they're all kind of on equal standards now in terms of that. And obviously the teams, the most important thing for them is the Constructors' Championship, and we know how close it is in that. But of course they'll understand from Lando's point of view that he has certainly a much better chance of winning the title than Oscar does. So they both need to work together, and there could be something here that they could do with the DRS as well, working together to try and pull a gap. The DRS is quite powerful here, but we can see DRS trains develop. So Oscar, let's say Lando gets away in the lead, Oscar's second, he needs to try and hang on the back of him.
Okay, so Norris on pole, Piastri alongside him. Just 7 minutes until the formation lap and the Italian Grand Prix gets underway. Russell in third place. Then it's the Ferraris of Leclerc and Sainz. Of course, they're in front of the Tifosi. Thousands of fans have poured into Monza to support the home heroes. They'll be cheering on Charles Leclerc, and also, as we mentioned, the birthday boy. It is Carlos Sainz, who turns 30 today.
Let me start with the birthday boy. Happy birthday.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, a very special birthday, to be here turning 30 in front of all the Tifosi. I feel very lucky, to be here in this position, and I'm going to enjoy the day.
A te, tanti auguri a Carlos.
Grazie.
Okay, so what is the best present gift possible that you can give the Tifosi today? Both of you.
We push for the win for one of us, obviously preferably the birthday boy, but if not, that one too, and I'm sure if not, we will try everything to be in the podium.
Is it going to be a wild race today? Are you going to push from the beginning, the first two laps?
Tire management is going to be a big thing for sure, and we've got to do our job on that. But we've done our homework now. It's all up to the pace of the car, but we'll give our best. And as I said, we'll do everything to try and do a 1-2. It's going to be very difficult. The competition is there, but together I'm sure we can do something magic, and especially for the birthday of Carlos, that will be the best gift.
Of course, that's Charles Leclerc with his dulcet tones. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about him doing a happy birthday.
Oh, I thought you were about his voice. I thought you weren't sure about his...
That's exactly what my issue is.
I mean, it's harsh. Probably just as bad as mine, to be honest. So fairness, I can't comment.
I can't comment either. The prize here at Monza is standing on that podium. It's something that is very special, especially if you're a Ferrari driver. Can you just even think what that must be like?
That you're on top of the world, I can imagine. Charles has obviously experienced it before. Carlos would love to experience it, and what a send-off from his last Grand Prix at the moment as a Ferrari driver at Monza. He would absolutely love to stand on that podium, and the atmosphere would just be incredible.
Charles Leclerc has been out driving on the other side, that Ferrari, in the last couple of races, somehow managed to get onto the podium in Zandvoort. Now the car seems like it's actually found a little bit more pace with upgrades they've brought this weekend, so I think Ferrari will be a force to play this weekend.
Hamilton P6, he was furious with himself, saying he should have got pole yesterday. Of course, he'll be driving for Ferrari this time next year, very exciting. Right next to him, it will be Max Verstappen. He might lead the championship, but what are his hopes of winning this race? Let's hear.
So Max, this is one of the most amazing crowds in F1. Do you imagine maybe one day having all this crowd, the Tifosi, crying out for your name? I mean, probably you had to be dressed in red to do that, right?
You're putting me straight on the spot.
Yeah, straight away.
I don't know. I mean, it's just amazing to see all the support, a lot of Ferrari fans, and it's very beautiful, to see so many people passionate about the brand and support their drivers. So happy to be in Monza. I have to say that also now with the new tarmac and curbs, it's very fun to drive for me personally. Looking forward to the race now.
Monza is always wild, starts, overtakes, safety car restarts. Does that open an extra opportunity for you? I think with a wild, crazy race.
I would hope so. The whole weekend we have been a bit off. Just struggling with the car. Of course, now we are on the back of the top group, I would say. So let's see what we can do. I mean, I don't expect miracles, but I hope that we can at least be in that battle and just try to score some decent points.
Oh, so if it finished like this, Harry, if Verstappen finished P7 and Norris finished first, let's take out the fastest lap equations, what would it be?
I think it's 51 points would be the gap, down from 70. That would be a sizable chunk eaten into. And with 9 races left to go, if it continues that way, he needs a little more than just to win every race. He does need Verstappen to not finish on the podium, to not finish second. And today could be a real possibility where they could maximise that with other teams taking points off Verstappen, Alice.
It certainly could, but can I add something else into the potential drama we could have
we'll
today?
Allow it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Harry. 40% chance of rain is the risk through the race. We're being told that there are some thunderstorms appearing on the weather radars here in Monza. So potentially we could have a storm thrown into the race, and the clouds are starting to come over. It's not as bright, as sunny as it was, and with the hot temperatures here, that can quickly throw up some thunderstorms.
Just a quick note, Logan Sargent is out. Franco Colapinto for Williams is in, starting in 18th place, Harry. About time?
Yes, about time for Sargent, absolutely. I'm as sad as it is. I think Williams had to make that call. They've got upgraded car for the first time in a while, and they are in a really tight fight for points in that lower midfield pack at the moment. I think Colapinto, who only found out on Monday he was going to be racing for the rest of the season, has got a tough task on his hand. But so far, Qualifying, actually, he disappointed. He should have got through to Q2. He made a mistake coming out of the second Lesmo. Up until that point, he'd been a few tenths off Albon, who, of course, has qualified in the top 10. I'm really excited to see what Colapinto can do this afternoon.
Just to update you, Verstappen and Perez both start on the hard tyres. The rest of the top 10 start on the medium tyres. We have no idea what's going to happen with strategy. This should be a one-stop race, but they've relayed the track, and that's called everyone's maths to go up in smoke. So let's see what happens. It's coming up to 2 o'clock here on BBC Radio 5 Live. Let's get the Italian Grand Prix underway. Harry Benjamin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jenny Gow. Just a few moments away then from the formation lap. Things to watch out for, that fight in the mid-pack. Can Red Bull find a way through? Ferrari on home soil, can they be powered onto the podium? And what about Lando Norris? Can he hold on to that lead? We'll find out in just a few moments' time. 53 laps ahead of us. It's time for the Italian Grand Prix. Back-to-back pole positions for Lando Norris, who lines up alongside his teammate Oscar Piastri. George Russell in the Mercedes is third. Then it's the first of the Ferrari, Charles Leclerc from fourth, in front of Carlos Sainz. Lewis Hamilton could have been on pole perhaps. Laments his qualifying effort, starts down in sixth, ahead of the two Red Bulls. Verstappen seventh, Perez eighth. Then it's Alex Albon for Williams in ninth, with Nico Hülkenberg rounding out the top 10 for Haas. Alonso is 11th, ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. Then it's Kevin Magnussen in 13th, with the two Alpines of Gasly and Ocon 14th and 15th. Yuki Tsunoda is down in 16th for RB, ahead of Lance Stroll in 17th. On debut, Franco Colapinto qualifying in 18th, ahead of his first Grand Prix. Then it's the two Saubers of Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, 20th and last. Twenty drivers then all lining up on the grid as the formation lap is underway. Alice, what are the drivers doing on the formation lap as they build up to the grid?
Tyre temperature, brake temperature, last minute tweaks to make sure they're in all the right modes for when they get to the grid. That's all that they are doing on this formation lap, and just keeping cool, keeping that heart rate as low as possible. Weekend attendance over 335,000 people here this weekend. Grandstands are packed, Ferrari flags everywhere. You've got the smoke flares, always a brilliant atmosphere. Just looking on the onboards here, the track is still super dusty offline. New surface that has been laid, as you mentioned, Harry, and also the chance of rain is increasing. Again, the F1 radars are starting to see showers pop up left, right and centre. So that chance has now gone up from 40%, and it's only increasing at the moment as the cars are heading now onto the grid, Harry.
They are indeed. Last burnouts as they peel into their grid positions ahead of 53 laps of the Italian Grand Prix. So far this weekend, the tyres have taken a real pounding, so strategy is going to be really intriguing throughout this race, Jenny.
Yes, hard tyres for Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez in the Red Bulls, starting out of position P7 and 8. Then hard tyres for Esteban Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda and Lance Stroll and Valtteri Bottas. Those are the hards, everyone else on mediums.
One thing to note about the hards, not as good launch. It's not as soft a compound as the medium tyres. So is that going to affect the Red Bulls as they head down into turn one?
As Max Verstappen pulls very far forward into his box.
He's maybe just about in his box. So we got a slow moving.
It's the Sauber of Zhou Guanyu, and I wonder if he's just giving himself a little bit of room for a final burnout. It will be the two Saubers who line up on the back of the grid, but of course Lando Norris has been waiting there for a fair while now in the pole position slot, but the final three cars are now lining up. Colapinto ahead of Bottas and Zhou Guanyu. It is hot out there as well. Track temperature 51 degrees, air temperature 33 degrees. The two Saubers at the back of the pack take their positions. Green flag flag flies towards the rear. It's Oscar Piastri on the front row. Lando Norris in the McLaren is on pole position. The Italian Grand Prix is almost underway. It's eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Monza. And it's a good start from Lando Norris, who immediately pulls over to the right-hand side to cut off his teammate Piastri. Piastri has to defend from Russell, who gets all out of control. There might be slight contact. Russell has to bail out and take to the escape road, weaving through the polystyrene bollards. But it's Norris and Piastri who maintain that 1-2 as they arc their way through the right-hander on the Curva Grande with the two Ferraris in tow behind. But as they break to the next chicane, it's Piastri trying around the outside, forcing his way through on Lando Norris, who is now under pressure from the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc behind. Leclerc down the inside into the right-hander of the first Lesmo, gets the move done. Lando Norris thought he'd done all he could do to hold on to that lead, but now has fallen down to third. It is Piastri who leads, Leclerc, then Norris.
Oscar Piastri, team orders? What team orders? He said before the race, I need to get a good launch and go from there. And well, he certainly did. As there's smoke in the background, someone getting forward first wide. It looks like one of the Hasses. Is that a puncture?
I think it's
possibly,
Hulkenberg.
Harry?
I think it's Hulkenberg. The two Hasses were coming very close to each other, along with the RB as well. Russell has damage. Part of his front wing end plate seems to be flapping about on the right-hand side. Did he perhaps have contact as they came into the braking zone for the Rettifilio chicane? But at the end of lap one, it's Piastri who leads.
Lewis didn't leave the car switch. I mean, I got the penalty for that, so...
Verstappen straight on with the rule book as he's trying to get back in front of Lewis Hamilton, who is now in fifth. Verstappen sixth. Russell down to seventh, having started this race in third and looking to challenge for the lead early doors. Lap 2 of 53 as DRS is enabled. It's Piastri who leads Leclerc by half a second, and I tell you what, Leclerc is closing in on the Australian. Norris has to settle for third for the time being. Then it's Sainz. Hamilton with a good start to fifth, ahead of Verstappen. Russell seventh. Perez has stayed where he is in eighth. Albon holds on to ninth. Then it's Alonso in 10th. Ricciardo is 11th. Magnussen 12th. Gasly, Ocon, Tsunoda the top 15. Hulkenberg with trouble coming through the Ascari chicane. 16th. Colapinto has kept his nose clean in his first Grand Prix, currently making a position up into 17th. Then it's Stroll, and then the two Saubers, Bottas and Zhou, as they make their way into the braking zone for Ascari. And because the lap before, I think Hulkenberg and the Haas got all out of shape and went off, brought a whole load of gravel onto the track, and Piastri, being the next lead car, has just had to make his way through that, Alice, and cause a huge plume of smoke to come billowing up at him and the cars behind.
Yeah, and this is what we're going to see, Harry, throughout the race. We're going to have the slippery surface flag out several times, I'm sure. It's so dusty. I can't get over how dusty it is offline, and just, as soon as you kick up a little bit of grass, that just spreads across the track. The DRS now available. Oscar's controlling the pace quite nicely out front. 6/10 is the gap. Max Verstappen was complaining on the radio here from Perez.
A lot of damage. He's dangerous.
Copy that.
So yeah, damage for Russell being reported by Perez. Fastest lap for Oscar Piastri, who's got a nice, comfortable lead there. I wonder if we're going to hear from the radio of Lando Norris. I mean, it was a brave, but it was a bold move from Piastri, and most importantly, it was clean.
But was it too much for lap one when the overriding message from the team was actually almost, we don't care who wins, but we want a 1-2 finish? And right now, that move Piastri made on Leclerc was such a tight move, and ultimately it cost Norris a further position. Leclerc is now sandwiching them.
I don't think Lando expected it. He left the room, which you have to do if there's a car on either side of you, but he kind of went casually, carried on going around the corner. We're just seeing some damage. So it's a front wing end plate, the front right end plate, that George Russell has lost. So he will be losing performance, but actually he's just keeping on the back of Verstappen, just within DRS. But then I think Oscar just thought, do you know what, I'm still going to go around the outside of you here, Lando Norris. Brave stuff from him. So I just think he caught Lando out, and then Lando was then compromised, maybe in too high a gear, and that's when Leclerc pounced.
Lap 4 of 53, it's Piastri who leads Leclerc by 0.6 of a second. Norris is third, Sainz, Hamilton the top 5. Then comes Verstappen in 6th, ahead of Russell with front wing damage. Perez is 8th, ahead of Albon and Alonso, rounding out the top 10. They are your point scorers. Then comes Ricciardo, Magnussen is 12th, ahead of Gasly and Ocon, the two Alpines. Linus third in 13th and 14th, ahead of Tsunoda in 15th, and Hülkenberg, the big loser on lap 1, down from a points-paying position into 16th. Colapinto is 17th, then comes Stroll, and the two Salvers are Bottas and Zhou, as we get another look at the start of the race. And the initial getaway was actually pretty good from Lando Norris, who immediately covered off his teammate Oscar Piastri, who then had to react to George Russell, and Russell just very late on the brakes and was going to go right into the back of Piastri, had to bail out, locked up his front right tyre, and is that where as well he gained that damage to his front right wing end plate, as we hear the sounds on board with George Russell's Mercedes, who got a good launch and was side by side with Piastri just about. Then Piastri got in front of him on the racing line. Russell wasn't going to make the corner, had too late on the brakes, bailed out of it, and picked up a bit of damage to boot as well. So Russell, it could have been a lot worse for the British racer there. And here is just another look at the move from Piastri taking the lead, coming through the second chicane. And Alice, that was incredibly tight. And then actually Norris nearly lost it as well. And that lack of traction on the exit was what allowed Leclerc to get alongside.
Yeah, and also he nearly lost his front wing to Lando Norris coming across. So close stuff. Oscar clearly enjoying himself. We're getting a replay now of Hülkenberg getting squeezed on the grass. Ricciardo not leaving him enough space into the Ascari chicane, and that could have gone horribly wrong for both drivers. More dust was kicked up actually by George Russell further up the road, and there was nearly contact between the two Haas as well as the Alpine of Gasly swept on through, but that's not a pretty sight. George Russell's front wing, he is still hanging in there behind Max Verstappen. DRS is hugely powerful here, but I have to say, Harry, is Oscar Piastri, he's not got the benefit of DRS, and he's doing a storming job out front. He's just set the fastest lap last time round. Clearly quite comfortable with the McLaren there.
Well, he did, but I think Leclerc is just about to take that away from him as he cut the beam for lap 6. Piastri's going quick. His last lap was a 1:24.6, but Leclerc takes it away from him. That they're nip and tuck into the 1:24.6s. It's Piastri who leads Leclerc. They are nip and tuck down into the braking zone of turn 1, throwing it into the right-hander, the Retifilia chicane. Then you arc left to get yourself into the exit of turn 2 before you curve round the right-hander known as Curva Grande. Piastri, Leclerc, Norris, a couple of seconds adrift now from Leclerc in third. He's got Sainz behind him in fourth. Then comes Hamilton. Now Verstappen is sixth. Important to remember, he is on the hard tyre, so can go longer into this race before pitting, as we see Nico Hülkenberg come into the pits in the Haas after actually some fairly good car control from him into the Ascari chicane after being almost forced onto the grass by Daniel Ricciardo. Avoided bidding the car, but they've done a front wing change there for Nico Hülkenberg, and that drops him all the way down the pack, almost to plumb last. And actually it wasn't the end of his racing experience with Daniel Ricciardo. Tried it down the inside of Ricciardo and the RB driver coming into turn 1, and just it was actually Tsunoda, my apologies, and went straight into the side of Tsunoda's side pod. How did you call that one, Alice?
I think he got mixed up with which RB he wanted to go into the side of. I think he probably thought that was Daniel Ricciardo. That was a bit ambitious. Actually, a bit is being nice. That was way too ambitious from Hülkenberg there. Had to pit because he's got damage, and that would have 100% damaged Tsunoda's floor as well, so he'll be losing a little bit of performance from that.
It's lap 7 of 53, and it was Lando Norris on pole position after initial good getaway. He has now lost the lead and is down to third. It's his teammate Oscar Piastri who leads this race, and Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, to the roar of the home fans. The Tifosi has put himself up into second, but still a long way to go in this race. Verstappen up to 6th place, having started down in 7th. And just a little feed in there to 5 Live for the loyal listeners that we have here with the BBC Sport website and app, and your chosen smart speaker of choice. It is indeed still lap 7 of 53 of the Italian Grand Prix. The gap now between Piastri and Leclerc is hovering around about the second mark, so he's trying to break that DRS activation point to avoid Leclerc still being able to keep with Piastri. So I have to say, Joe, I think Piastri is managing this race quite well so far in these early stages.
Yes, and much to McLaren's dismay, of course, because now they are 1 and 3, as you pointed out earlier. Just looking at the pit stop strategies, looking around lap 20 for the people that started on the medium tyres to come in and switch over to the harder tyres. There's still a question mark as to whether they can do just one stop in this race. That's what they'd prefer to do, Verstappen radio.
Just keep it there for the moment, Max. Let them push that medium tyre hard.
Max Verstappen, of course, starting on the hard tyre compared to those around him on the mediums. Yet we know that Hulkenberg has come into pit. He's gone onto the hard tyre, so it will give everyone a rough idea as to what they're expecting.
Tsunoda also came into the pits after rather being a bit of a victim of Nico Hulkenberg there, and has just been told to box the car to retire in what compounds a rather miserable weekend for Yuki Tsunoda, who was out-qualified by his teammate. Tsunoda was down in 16th, and actually he was the only one not to have really any new sets of hard tyres. So the Japanese driver pulls into his pit box, greeted by his team, and this will be one to forget. A shame for Yuki Tsunoda and RB in this one of their home races for the RB team, based in Faenza, not too far away from here in Monza. That is one car then out of this race. 19 remain. Oscar Piastri leads them all for McLaren by a second. Charles Leclerc just about maintaining that gap for the time being as they head down the back straight now into the final corner, the right-hander, the Parabolica. Then it's Norris in third, who is a further 1.5 seconds adrift. Sainz is fourth, Hamilton is fifth. Verstappen then in sixth on that hard tyre then, and they seem quite happy, Alice, just to sit there for the time being, because of course the hard tyre will go longer than all the drivers in front of him who are on that medium tyre.
Yeah, so Verstappen, he's got to be patient, listen to his engineer, and that looks like what he's doing at the moment. 1.4 is the gap to Hamilton in front. Two Alpines are battling now. Esteban Ocon, he is on the hard tyre. He sails on past his teammate Pierre Gasly as they head down into turn one. Daniel Ricciardo is going to be receiving, though, Harry, a penalty, 5-second penalty for forcing another car off track. That was, of course, Nico Hulkenberg going down into the Ascari chicane, but I do expect, I'll be shocked actually, if Hulkenberg doesn't receive a penalty as well for that incident with Tsunoda.
Fair for Ricciardo?
I would say that's fair.
Yeah, I think so. And well, while he's still in that race, that'll be applied when he comes in for his first pit stop. So the team will not be allowed to touch the car for 5 seconds when he comes in for his first pit stop. And on cue, Alice, Nico Hulkenberg is given a penalty, 10 seconds for colliding, causing a collision with Yuki Tsunoda, who I suppose by direct result is now out of this race, hence the slightly harsher penalty for Nico Hulkenberg, who is now 19th and plumb last. And that is a really difficult day at the office for Nico Hulkenberg, who started this race with such promise down in 10th, fighting with Alex Albon nip and tuck, and actually on the race pace it looked like Williams slightly had the Haas had the slight edge over Williams. It was going to be a fascinating battle, but now both Haas's are out of the points. Magnussen is 12th, Albon still holding on to 9th, but he's got Fernando Alonso right behind him, 0.8 of a second. The DRS rear wing is flying open for Alonso, who is speeding down the main straight into the braking zone, early braking just before the 150-metre braking board, slides it into the right-hander, then through the left as he gets on to the throttle. The RB behind of Daniel Ricciardo looks like he's had to cut the chicane. He's got Magnussen all over the back of him now through Curva Grande.
The tyres obviously holding on quite well, because I've just watched Oscar Piastri and then Charles Leclerc 1-2 in this race go through as fastest laps and still setting fastest laps. There was a concern that if you lent on these tyres too soon and really worked them too hard too quickly, they'll fall away, graining on the front and rear of the tyres, and that's really hard to come back from. But it looks like they're holding on quite well, Alice, at the moment.
It does, but there's many factors that can also affect here. You're seeing quite a few drivers have a bit of a lock-up and opting. Daniel Ricciardo, the prime example we were just talking about, and then skipping the chicane, because if you have a lock-up, you'll then end up finding that flat spot over and over and over again, and with the heavy braking zones here, that is not what you want, and that will totally ruin your strategy, because you will have to box for new tyres. Low downforce here as well because of the nature of the track and the long straights, so going down into turn one, it's very difficult, as we're seeing a pretty easy pass from Sergio Perez on George Russell, who takes a little look over his shoulder, sees the Red Bull there, slots back in behind behind. Nicely done by Sergio Perez. So maybe this is where the Mercedes are now starting to struggle with the tyres. However,
side by side, sorry Alice, for the sole remaining RB of Daniel Ricciardo with Kevin Magnussen. What a move by Kevin Magnussen to get that position of 11th place side by side through the first chicane. Nice clean racing. Bear in mind Ricciardo's already been in the wars so far in these early stages. Magnussen up to 11th. Magnussen is chasing down points here. He is looking to try and get his next points paying position. He hasn't scored points since way back in Austria, so that's his only points paying position other than back in Australia as well. So Magnussen up to 11th, Ricciardo now down to 12th.
Lap 11, Russell being told to box.
And Oscar, do you have an opinion on plan A versus plan B yet?
I think plan A so far.
Plan A for Oscar Piastri then. So sticking with the main strategy for them, which, well, could that be a one-stop still if they're able to make these tyres last? We're expecting degradation to be much higher than it has been historically at the Italian Grand Prix, so much so that maybe perhaps the two-stop is one to look at. But for Russell, he certainly has to come into the pits, and Mercedes are readying for a front wing change, I believe, Jenny.
Yes, it's got right-hand side end plate loss after that first lap incident on the first turn. So they're going to take him in, take that front wing off, put on a new nose, and hopefully that'll sort him out when it comes to grip. But will they put on the hard, and will they try to go long now and see if he can stay out till the end of the race, lap 12 of 53?
Ricciardo also comes into the pits as well. Remember, he has a 5-second penalty, so the team will not be allowed to work on that car or even touch it for 5 seconds before they can change the tyres on that, and that is reflected in his stop time of 8.4 seconds. Russell then feeds back out into 16th place, just ahead of Gasly, who was also pitted earlier on. He's now on the hard tyre, lap 12 of 53. It's Piastri who leads with the fastest lap as well. The gap between himself and Charles Leclerc edging towards 2 seconds now, as Norris is a further 1.2 seconds back in third. Then comes Sainz. Hamilton is still fifth. Verstappen is sixth, with his teammate now behind him in seventh, having Perez now dispatched George Russell. Albon is eighth, Alonso ninth, Magnussen is the top 10. There are your point scorers. Then it's Ocon, Stroll, Colapinto up to 13th ahead of the two Saubers of Bottas and Zhou. Russell feeding out in 16th ahead of Gasly. Ricciardo ahead of Hulkenberg. There might be fireworks there by the time Hulkenberg catches back up to the Australian. With one driver out of this race, Yuki Tsunoda in the other RB.
Just looking at the lap times on our timing screen here, Harry, and Lando Norris is slowly creeping his way to the back of Charles Leclerc, 3/10 quicker than the Ferrari driver on the previous lap. So he is edging closer and closer and closer. Albon at the moment is one of the quickest drivers on track as Aston Martin. Lovely stop by Alonso there. He's on his way. So that's his first pit stop of the day. A nice clean stop, hard tyre bolted on to the wheel of the wagon of his car, should I say. Pierre Gasly, he's dropped right down, but actually that pace of the Alpine is not too bad comparing to those that are out there at the moment who have stopped. So it looks like the fresh tyres, fresh hards, are a pretty decent option as we're heading now, definitely in that pit stop window. Piastri, though, he is so consistent. His last couple of laps are within hundreds of each other. Same with Max Verstappen as well. But Lando Norris is getting ever so closer to the rear of Charles Leclerc. 9/10 is the gap now. I'm not sure if he actually has got DRS. I think he was out of the detection. Yes, he has got DRS. So he's streaming now onto the back of the Ferrari.
Piastri building the gap to Leclerc, Norris building a gap to Sainz, and doing so, closing in right onto the back of the other Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, up through the gears, getting into sixth gear, round the right-hander of Curva Grande for Norris as he edges closer and closer to Leclerc. And we're just getting another look at an incident for Lando Norris coming out of the second Lesmo. Alice, what happened to Norris?
So just ran a little bit too wide, but the curbs here on the exit, particularly of the two Lesmos, there's like a drop-off. So you're on the edge of that curb and you think, I've got this quite nicely, and that's what happened to Norris. And then all of a sudden, just a little bit too much of that rear tyre dipped off the edge of the curb, and there's actually a bigger drop. The TV doesn't do it justice, but there is quite a big drop from the curve into the gravel there, and that's why we've seen quite a few aggressive snaps from some of the drivers that ran wide, especially Colapinto when he ran wide in qualifying yesterday. Now Leclerc is weaving left, weaving right, just desperately trying to break the toe of Lando Norris. Now keeps it straight going into the final corner. Norris is even closer this lap, just over half a second here from Norris.
Suggests we do box to overtake on Leclerc, box to overtake.
That's Lando Norris's radio, so they are doing the undercut as he locks up his tyres, trying to get down to the pit lane speed limit of 80 kilometres an hour, and there is a bollard on the right-hand side that says the speed limit. He's locked up so much, he's actually clipped it. It hasn't done any damage, and it hasn't slowed him down either as he's come into the pit box. 2.2 seconds for Lando Norris, but is that the pressure just slightly getting to Lando Norris here? He's doing the undercut, he's pitting first, Alice, so he can get hopefully a bit of clear air.
And I'm just having a look where he's going to come out between. I think he's near he's stuck up behind the back of Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. I wouldn't necessarily, that's the pressure getting to him, just you know how fine margins. If you push 100% into your pit box, into the pit lane, this is tenths. You could gain half a second by getting it right.
Lap 15 of 53, Lando Norris started this race on pole, fell down to third, has just come in for his first pit stop and has peeled out an 8th spot. It's Oscar Piastri, his teammate, who leads though, building a nice gap to Charles Leclerc of nearly 4 seconds. Still a long way to go in this one, 53 laps total. We're just getting a look at the incident for Lando Norris coming into the pit lane, Alice, and I don't think I've seen anyone hit the 80-kilometre board before, which he sort of ran over with his front wing.
Yeah, he was locked up. Hamilton's been called into box as well now. A nice stop from the Ferrari of Leclerc as well, nice and clean. Hamilton in, he's going to get a fresh set of tyres that he'll be desperately wanting. Nicely done from both pit crews, near enough the same time. 2.5 for Leclerc, 2.3 Hamilton. You haven't, and I haven't seen anyone clip it before, but he just knows that all these tenths make up the time. Leclerc comes out behind Norris.
He does indeed. Norris does make the undercut work. Leclerc just coming into turn 1 now as Norris exits it. Hamilton comes out in 10th spot, just ahead of the Williams at Franco Colapinto that hasn't pitted yet. So that has worked out then for Lando Norris and McLaren, who have gained what should be net second. At the moment, it's 6th on the road, with Charles Leclerc slotted in behind in 7th. So can Ferrari do anything to try and claw back that position from Lando Norris? Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri has been told, and I think we have a pit stop incoming for the Australian. He's now got a 7-second gap to Carlos Sainz, who sits in 2nd. Verstappen is 3rd, who hasn't pitted.
This guy will struggle to go to the end. I understood.
Sainz says these guys will struggle to go to the end. On cue, Jenny Gow, as Piastri comes in.
Yes, Oscar Piastri leading this race, comes into the McLaren pit box. 22 men swarm around him, lift the car up, put the hard tyres on. It's a nice clean pit stop. He's gone back out again, Harry, and it's back over into the racetrack. It hasn't come up with a time quite yet.
Lando Norris is just coming to the pit lane entry now as he feeds down the start-finish straight. So Piastri then will come out in 4th spot. He will just get ahead of Alex Albon, who is yet to pit in the Williams. It's the 2 McLarens then. Piastri 4th. Norris is now 6th, with Albon in the middle on the road.
What was that? Why do we pit if we undercut?
That was Charles Leclerc asking, why did we pit if we were being undercut? Why, Alice? Why?
Well, good question. They obviously felt that that was the right thing to do, unless they wanted to try and cover off anyone, but there was no one really near them. It was Sainz behind, so I'm not really, I can't answer that. I cannot, unless Jenny can.
They pitted at exactly the same time as Hamilton. I just wondered if that was the mistake they're thinking, if Leclerc's reading this race in a different way than we are.
I mean, Hamilton's pace wasn't on what Leclerc was doing, so I'm not sure why. I mean, we have seen some strange decisions, haven't we, in the past from Ferrari, but they obviously felt a threat from somewhere, as Lando Norris is tucked up behind Albon at the moment, so he will get the benefit of DRS going onto the main straight. It does look like Norris has closed the gap to Piastri. While saying that, actually it's stretched a little bit now, because Lando Norris is really getting hampered. Let's hear from him.
Lando, it's likely we will have to cover with the other car. It'll be papaya rules.
Papaya rules then, Will Joseph reports to Lando Norris. We will have to cover the other car. Albon peels into the pits. That allows Norris to get up to 5th spot, 2.5 seconds behind Piastri, who is effectively the net leader at the moment in 4th. Sainz leads on the road, hasn't pitted. Verstappen and Perez are 2nd and 3rd on the hard tyre. They have yet to pit. Then comes Piastri, then comes Norris. That radio message, Alice, did you read that as it's Piastri to win this race now and you have to support him, Lando?
Yes, that's exactly how I read it. And Daniel Ricciardo, 10-second penalty is just flashing up on our screen, so not the day that he wants for not serving a time penalty correctly when he boxed. But I'm actually surprised with that radio message. Because if I was Lando Norris, I'd be thinking, well, hang on, I'm fighting for a championship here. I know they're fighting for the constructors, and they obviously didn't want to lose time, as we're just seeing a replay of the infringement, and it was the person on the front right, the mechanic touched the car. Yeah, sorry,
he's going to get away with that.
Yeah, I have no idea who the name of the mechanic is, but he touched the car, and that was the infringement. He realised straight away. But fastest lap from Oscar Piastri, quickly taken away by Norris, and then quickly taken away by Leclerc. And Norris is catching, but he is under threat from the Ferrari.
This is what McLaren are getting at, right? I think they realise that Leclerc is a real threat here, so they need Piastri to essentially hold him up and play the team game. They need Norris to essentially hold him up and play the team game to allow Piastri to rebuild a bit more of a gap, and for Norris to hold back Leclerc, because Leclerc is closing in on the two McLarens at a rate of knots right at the moment. He's getting the DRS from Lando Norris as he comes through the second chicane and approaches the right-hander of Lesmo 1.
So what they need to do here, because you're right, Harry, Leclerc is storming all the way onto the back, well, he's within DRS reach now of Lando Norris, is they need to create almost like a DRS train. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Piastri drop back a little bit. Gap is 2.2 between the two McLaren cars at the moment, as we're going to see a replay of some awful understeer from Max Verstappen running wide, just dropping that wheel off at Lesmo 2 and kicking the gravel and the rear out at the same time. So if Piastri can give the DRS to Norris, that will make it even harder for Leclerc to get through. So the gap now is actually starting to come down between Norris and Piastri. So I wonder if that's what McLaren are going to do. Maybe that's what the message was. Maybe that was, we need to work together to make sure we don't let the Ferrari past.
And on lap 20, Carlos Sainz relinquishes the lead and comes into the pits for his first pit stop. That allows Verstappen to get back, to take the lead for the first time. 1.9 seconds Verstappen has over his teammate Perez. They're both on the hard tyre, which they started this race on and have yet to pit. So they are running much longer than everybody else. Piastri is in third, 7.8 seconds behind Perez. Then comes Norris, 1.8 seconds behind. Leclerc is on the cusp of that DRS zone within Norris. He's sort of edging between 9/10 and 1 second at the moment. Sainz feeds out in 6th ahead of Hamilton, who into the braking zone for the second chicane out of the Curva Grande, gets through on Esteban Ocon's Alpine. Hamilton up to 7th. Nice battle brewing between Hamilton and the man he's replacing at Ferrari next year, Sainz, over 6th.
Lap 20, and Harry, Alice, we were thinking about Norris, his charge for the championship, McLaren's charge for the constructors. How have we got to this situation where it looks like Norris is going to be having to play the team game and not being in charge of this Grand Prix? It's very confusing.
I wonder if, obviously, they have team meetings prior to the start of the race. Verstappen's being told on the radio to pick the pace up. I can imagine what his reply is probably going to be back to his engineer. But I wonder if something was said along the lines of, well, whoever is the first car, the end of the first lap, will get the benefit of having first calls, but they did.
But is that wise? Is that wise for McLaren to not have gone, we're backing our man, this is Norris, stay out of the way, support him?
The team want the constructors. That's what's the most important thing for them. They get a lot of money for each place they gain, and of course you want to be the team want to be the constructors championship. The drivers championship is second. The drivers want to be world champion, but they get paid by the teams. Lando's an employee, you could say technically, of McLaren, a very important employee of that, because he of course is the driver. Gap is coming down ever so slowly, 1.6 now. Leclerc is out of DRS of Lando Norris, so that charge has been halted. Maybe he's dropping back a little bit further to look after his tyres, but everyone out there at the moment is on the hard tyre. We're having a look at Kevin Magnussen, who got squeezed ever so slightly from Pierre Gasly. He locks up and hits the side of Pierre Gasly going into De La Roja chicane. It has been, this is what you get at Monza, though, I find. You get the toe, you get all excited, you go, I'm streaming up to the back of them, low downforce, hit the brakes hard, and then you lock up. So
at least I suppose it was wheel to wheel, so they both got away with minimal damage on that front. But Magnussen is pushing. He's now behind Gasly. Gasly 13th, Magnussen 14th. It's lap 22 of 53 of the Italian Grand Prix. Verstappen leads, yet to pit, by 2.9 seconds from his teammate Sergio Perez, who also hasn't pitted. Oscar Piastri is effectively the net leader in third, with Norris behind. Now we believe, I think, having looked into that radio message a little bit more that Will Joseph gave to Lando Norris, that the drivers are free to race, but right now it is Piastri who has the upper hand. Norris is having to look in his mirrors because he has got Charles Leclerc, who is still causing him a bit of trouble. Leclerc is fifth, then there's a gap back to Carlos Sainz. Hamilton is in seventh, Ocon is eighth, who has yet to pit. Then comes Russell in ninth, who had a tough start from third, picking up damage, battling with Oscar Piastri into turn one, and had to have a front wing change when he did come in for the pit. Alonso is 10th, and he has pitted. Then comes Bottas in 11th, who has yet to pit in the Sauber, as Max Verstappen comes into the pits for his first stop, peels in to his pit box outside of the garage. Jenny Gow.
Yes, but it's a slow stop. The rear right is a slow one. He's got the wheel on now, but I think it's 6.2, very unlike Red Bull. So he's onto another set of hard tyres, cementing that having to do a two-stop strategy. So what have they done, and what will they do going forward to this race?
Well, they've been struggling recently with their pit stops, haven't they, Red Bull, for some reason. I was just about to say, and it's been confirmed, he is going to slot behind Ocon.
You are allowed to race Oscar Papaya rules.
So Norris being told that he's allowed to race Papaya rules. We need to get in touch with our friends at McLaren and try and work out what Papaya rules means. So that's great for us.
Surely
to
that's
hear.
Just keep it clean, no?
I would say so. 100%. We're just getting another replay, and it was, Jenny, that rear right tyre
coming off, wasn't it?
Yeah, it couldn't get it off, so Max will be frustrated even more, but he is dropped now behind Esteban Ocon, who still is out there. He hasn't pitted yet, same with Sergio Perez, he's not boxed either, and Valtteri Bottas. So three drivers yet to pit, still circulating, and Max is banging in huge frustration on the steering wheel more than once, heading down pit lane. Perez now, he's into the pits, getting rid of this set of hard tyres. Let's see if it's a smooth pit stop this time round. Much smoother than last time, 2.8, and again in Red Bull terms, that's not as their fastest. 1.8, I believe, in China, I think, was the fastest pit stop.
Well, let's see where Perez comes out. Piastri regains the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. It's his teammate now, though, has the momentum swung back to Lando Norris, who is picking up the pace. He's just set the fastest lap. He's in second.
So how do we do this stint then? We just get on with it now, Max.
How do we do this stint then, Verstappen asks, and he's told, we just get on with it. He's in seventh, right up behind Ocon, who hasn't pitted yet. Perez has fed out in eighth, 2 seconds behind Verstappen, who now dispatches quite easily the Alpine of Esteban Ocon.
So what are Team Papaya rules? What does that mean? What have they said in their briefing? How are they going to play this? Norris trials by 1.8 seconds from Piastri, who leads this race. Alice, What do you think Zach Brown has said? What do you think the team have said?
I think Harry hit the nail on the head. Keep it clean, no contact, no aggressive moves. You don't treat this like any other driver. This is your teammate. It's important that we get the Constructors' Championship. Oscar Piastri has just set the fastest lap of the race and opened up the gap to 1.8 seconds over his teammate. That's all I can think it will be, is keeping it clean, Jenny, because I've said before, it's really important for the Constructors.
But just seeing K-Mag having a nice battle further back in the pack for 13th. He's got Albon in front of him now and Gasly behind in that scrap in the mid-pack. Just to bring you up to speed with the debutante in Formula One, Franco Colapinto for Williams. He started this race down in 18th spot and he's currently up in 16th and is going fairly well. Decent lap times from Colapinto at the moment, and he's keeping Stroll at bay, and Hulkenberg too is not that far behind. So Colapinto getting some brilliant racing experience under his belt in his first ever Formula One Grand Prix. The racing driver from Argentina stepping up from Formula 2, replacing Logan Sargent for the remainder of the year. Lap 25 of 53 then. It's free to race between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Keep it clean, keep it safe, leave a bit of extra gap than you would do compared to when you're racing other cars as per Papaya rules. 1.8 seconds is the gap between Piastri and Norris. Then comes Leclerc and Sainz is fourth as Oscar Piastri just takes the fastest lap. Hamilton is fifth, Verstappen in sixth. Then comes Perez a couple of seconds back now in seventh. Russell has just got himself up into eighth spot. Ocon is going long on the hard tyre for Alpine. He still has yet to come into the pits. He's ninth. Alonso is 10th. Then comes Albon, Bottas, Magnussen, who's just received a penalty for causing a collision, a 10-second time penalty with his rough racing with Pierre Gasly into the second chicane a few laps ago. Gasly 14th, Ricciardo 15th, Colapinto 16th, and it's Stroll, Hulkenberg and Zhou, the 19 drivers that remain in this race, with Yuki Tsunoda in the RB out.
Just to update you, Magnussen, as you said, has that 10-second time penalty. And the two drivers who haven't yet come in started on hards as Esteban Ocon and Valtteri Bottas. So those are the two drivers still out there yet to pit.
Just going back to this Papaya rules, Andrew Benson has sent me his interpretation of it, and he says if one driver is helped by tactics to pass another driver from another team, then it is not allowed to advantage the other.
Right, okay.
So that's what Andrew Benson has sent over. Thank you very much for that, Benny. So they are otherwise, yeah, essentially free to race.
Basically, it's free to race, but keep it clean and don't do anything silly. I think that's essentially what the rules are at the moment. But Piastri at the moment has the upper hand, 2.2 seconds, and has just set the fastest lap, a 1:23.133, with Lando Norris about 0.3 slower that last lap round. Piastri just making his way through the right-hander of Curva Grande now. Norris second, then comes Leclerc a further 1.5 seconds back. Sainz is fourth, Hamilton fifth. Close battle brewing. Well, it's not really a battle, but it's over ninth. Alonso should be able to make easy work of Esteban Ocon. Alonso with the DRS and fresher tyres. Ocon, who hasn't pitted in the Alpine. The Aston Martin moves out to the right-hand side into the braking zone, down the inside of the first chicane, and makes the move stick. Ocon does not fight that one. Alonso takes ninth spot away from Esteban. Then further back, Daniel Ricciardo is really trying it on Pierre Gasly, slides down the inside of the Alpine into the first chicane but can't make it stick. Gasly holding his own for Alpine. A fantastic race last time around in Zandvoort, not quite going the same way for the Frenchman this time around, down in 14th and keeping Ricciardo at bay through Curva Grande, but a lock up for Gasly into the second chicane. He can't turn it in, he has to cut the corner, and that will mean he'll let Ricciardo through. He does do. Ricciardo takes that spot away from Gasly as they feed it to the right-hander of the first Lesmo. Gasly up to 14th, Ricciardo 15th. Other way round. Ricciardo 14th, Gasly 15th.
Well, edit that out, it's fine. If you would like something interesting for you, the Constructors' Championship live right now as it stands. Okay, it might not finish this way, but as it stands, Red Bull Racing would have 448 points, McLaren would have 448 points. They would be tied in the lead of the Constructors' Championship. That is the difference. McLaren obviously 1, 2, and Red Bull Racing 6 and 7. So it's tied as we stand.
It's interesting though, I mean, we touched on it when Verstappen pitted for another set of the hard tyre, which means he's definitely going to have to stop again, because you have to race at least both compounds, and so surely Verstappen is really not going to be a threat for the podium if he has to stop again, Jen.
I think they are thinking that most people will have to stop again. Yes, they've gone on to the hards and they've given themselves the option to go longer if they can, but going so early into the pit lane would denote that a lot of these people are looking at a two-stop strategy. So they're in the mix, but they have given themselves no other option. And the fact that Esteban Ocon is still out on the hard in 10th place, and Valtteri Bottas is still out on the hard, and they're on almost lap 30, might change that around.
Well, I'll tell you what might change it around is some rain. Do you fancy that? 30 minutes away from the circuit,
please.
There's reports that it is absolutely chucking it down with rain, and the F1 weather radar, rain is coming in from the south, lots of scattered showers as I'm looking at the radar here. So potentially there could be a shower or two on the way. Track temperature when a few minutes before the race was 53.8 degrees. It's now 45.3. So the track temperature's coming down. The sun isn't out anymore. We're surrounded by cloud here at Monza, and some of it looking a little bit dark.
Didn't have rain in the forecast coming into this weekend, but that could well put the cat amongst the pigeons. Further back outside the points, Ricciardo has just blasted past Valtteri Bottas for 13th. There's been a bit of a messy race for Daniel Ricciardo so far today. I think it's fair to say. No points on the board at the moment. It's Ocon who's holding on to that final points paying position, but as Jenny said, he is yet to pit, so showing how long the hard can go for, but he is a couple of seconds off the pace compared to those in front of him. Really intriguing to see how the battle unfolds between Piastri and Norris, the two McLarens, but also how Red Bull are going to play this one. Have they simply just lost some pace this weekend? Verstappen is currently down in 6th. He will definitely have to pit, but we're expecting perhaps 2 stops for those within the top 10. Perez is a few seconds behind him in 7th, so it's actually one of the better races for Sergio Perez in recent times. Russell is closing in on them both though, Jenny, behind in 8th.
Yeah, just listening across to Lewis Hamilton's radio, and he was surprised at the pace of the top 2. He's saying, are they not dropping up yet? And he's been told, no, they're not. So Lewis Hamilton was obviously expecting the McLarens to be dropping off now. They're not.
Yeah, they're not, and he is not setting personal best, but Max Verstappen is, who is the driver behind him. We're riding on board with Franco Colapinto, who's having a fairly clean race so far. Don't want to jinx him, of course. He's got DRS, he's storming up to the back of an Alpine, having a look down the inside of Gasly. Does he make it stick? Yes, he does. Pretty nice, clean move from Franco Colapinto. Nicely done.
Lovely stuff from the 21-year-old from Argentina, making his debut, replacing Logan Sargent. Started down in 18th, frustrated in qualifying yesterday, made a mistake on his run in Q1, expected to get into Q2 and would have done with the pace he was carrying, but trying to make amends for that at the moment, up into 15th, keeping Gasly now at bay along with Stroll, and he dropped Hulkenberg a few laps ago. So Colapinto's next target will be the Sauber of Valtteri Bottas. Lap 31 of 53, Oscar Piastri still leads 3 seconds to Lando Norris. The two McLarens, though, have been told they can race. Leclerc and the Ferrari is chasing them for 3rd. Lap 31 of 53. Leclerc is indeed honing in on them. Well, actually, no, he is last up around. He was a few tenths quicker as Perez and Russell go side by side into turn 1. They both come off a little bit shakily. Russell has to cut the corner, picks up a bit of gravel, and that will mean Perez can retake the position down the inside through the Curva Grande. Russell slots in behind the Mexican, who then holds that inside line coming into the second chicane, gives Russell the room, who equally respects that position. Russell tucks in behind once more, but Perez under pressure for that 7th place.
4 tenths is now the gap between Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc, and Leclerc has been told that Norris is dropping off, struggling with graining on his tyres then, and it looks like he is as well, Harry. Norris gets a very good exit out of the final corner, and that's going to be crucial to trying to help him keep the Ferrari behind. DRS wide open for Charles Leclerc. Gap comes down 7 tenths, 6 tenths, but not quite close enough. And this is obviously going to play into the hands of Piastri. And remember, Lando has usually been the driver that's much better with managing his tyres. But it seems at the moment Piastri is managing this much better.
Yeah, intriguing. That's kind of been a bit of an issue that Piastri's really struggled with in his early career. But right now, last lap around for Oscar Piastri, a 1:23.2. Lando Norris, a 1:24.9. Leclerc, a 1:23.9. So Leclerc is rapidly catching Norris. Did Norris make a mistake on his last lap around? He did. That cost Norris a lot of time coming into the second chicane. Wasn't able to get it turned in, and then actually had to take to the runoff as well, which cost him more time. So that, I think, is why Leclerc might have been able to make up a huge bunch of time in that last lap around, but he's now still within 8 tenths of a second. So a costly mistake from Lando Norris. Here's Perez.
What are you doing? She gives me the position and next you race me?
I mean, to be fair, I would do the same thing as George Russell. He's a racing driver, and I'm sure Perez would have done the exact same thing as well. We all give the position
Norris
back
pits.
in a nice place.
Norris pits, comes in to the pit lane. Jenny Gow this time avoiding the 80km/h bollard.
Yes, absolutely. Lap 33, Norris comes into the pit lane, into the McLaren box. The Papaya team lift him up. They're putting on a hard set of the tyres. It's a slow stop. I think it was rear left. He's gone out 3.3.
Slow stop for Lando Norris. That was the last thing he needed. It is nip and tuck over second right now with Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. Norris is coming to the pits. His tyres absolutely screaming, Alice, but a slow pit stop just compounds the misery at the moment.
Yeah, they were really grained. So he was struggling to turn the car. It's that right-hand side tyres that were grained, and that explains when he was trying to go into the De La Roja chicane how he turned. And it gave him nothing, and he got a little bit of oversteer and had to run wide. The battle between Perez and Russell continues, but this is not what Lando Norris was wanting at all. And I wonder now, and I'm going to keep a real close eye on the lap times here between Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc. Last time around, Charles Leclerc 2 tenths quicker than Oscar Piastri. 5.5 is the gap at the moment. So this gives Charles Leclerc a little bit of free air to play with. However, he has been tucked on. Let's hear from Norris.
I don't know why I'm killing my front left so much.
That was Norris saying, I don't know why I'm killing my front left so much.
His front right looked awful as well, but it's a lot of high-speed load here. So, for example, he's going through the final corner now. That's a long, sweeping corner. Different asphalt here, remember, from what they've raced on in previous years. It's all been resurfaced, so it's kind of a bit of new territory for all of the teams here this weekend. But the gap coming down by only 1/10 that lap, as in the pits comes George Russell.
Does indeed, is greeted by the front Jackman, who lifts the Mercedes car up. They change the tyres, but it's a slow stop as he's held for a little while. Slow pit stops, the order of the day so far in Monza. 4.2 seconds for George Russell, who is, after a brilliant start, has had a struggle of a race, picking up damage early doors. It's lap 34 of 53 of the Italian Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri leads Charles Leclerc by over 5 seconds. Then comes Carlos Sainz in third. Hamilton is fourth. Verstappen is fifth, with Norris having just pitted, feeding out in sixth ahead of Perez. Alonso, Magnussen is up to ninth, with Alex Albon inside the top 10. Worth just reiterating that it was Lando Norris who started the race on pole position alongside Oscar Piastri. And after a good start from Norris, though, coming into the second chicane, it was Piastri who piled on the pressure and made the move to take the lead of the Grand Prix. And since then, Piastri hasn't really had to look back, and as he made the move through, Charles Charles Leclerc pounced on that and got the Ferrari up into second, compounding Lando Norris's misery. And going into turn one, George Russell was looking like he might challenge, but was quite late on the brakes, didn't have anywhere to go, had to bail out of it and take to the runoff area, and in doing so picked up a bit of damage on that front right wing end plate, and that has really played catch up for the rest of the week, for the rest of the race for George Russell. That is how we've got to this moment so far, with Oscar Piastri leading. McLaren have said that the two cars are free to race. Jenny Gow.
Just looking at who's done what with tyres, lap 34 has just gone, and that's when Valtteri Bottas came into the pits and changed onto the medium tyres from the hard. So we're looking at who could potentially make a one-stop work. Well, they definitely can, Bottas and Ocon, I think, but elsewhere, can Sainz? He came in kind of late for those for the first stop, lap 20. Could he make it work? I'm not sure he can, but have they tried something different with Sainz? Have they split the strategies? I don't know.
And one thing as well, we're coming into where traffic will be playing a part for those up front. So Charles Leclerc is tucked up behind Pierre Gasly at the moment, so he should be getting benefit either now or soon of DRS down the main straight. But Piastri is now going to come up behind Zhou. He's also got Esteban Ocon to deal with as well. So this ebbs and flows. We're going to see Perez come into the box as well, so he's being called in. Lando Norris has just set the fastest lap of the race, so far he'll be taking the extra point home for fastest lap.
Perez is coming in. That indicates surely that Max Verstappen, of course, has to pit again. But the big question is, though, do any of the top four have to pit again? Will they want to pit again? Piastri, Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Verstappen is fifth. We know he's got to go again.
I mean, Piastri doesn't have to, but he came in on lap 17. I'd be amazed if he can get to the end of this race on the pace that he is with just one stop. As you say, Perez has come in. Verstappen actually came in one lap earlier for his first pit stop. So, yeah, let's keep watching.
If you're wondering why we keep saying Verstappen has to pit again, it's because he started on the hard tyre, then switched on to another hard tyre. And as per the rules, you have to use both sets of compounds available. He will need to use the medium compound of tyre at some stage in this race for Max Verstappen. Lando Norris with the fastest lap, then Perez. Where did Perez feed out? Behind Norris in seventh after his pit stop. Must say also, further back in the pack, there's a lovely battle going on between Franco Colapinto and Lance Stroll, the Williams driver versus the Aston Martin driver, over 12th and 13th. So Colapinto really not afraid to pick his battles this weekend and get some valuable racing experience. The Argentinian driver making his debut.
When it's possible to defend, you want me to race him?
Yes, please, yeah.
Verstappen says, when it's possible to defend, do you want me to race him? The answer is yes. Him, for Max Verstappen, must be referring to Lando Norris behind Alice.
Yes, I think you've got that correct. Obviously, they're fighting each other in the Drivers' Championship, but Constructors' Championship as well. So he'll be desperate to keep him behind, but the pace difference is quite a lot. So he's going to give it a good go, of course. We're on about Max Verstappen here, but it's going to be tough for him to keep him behind. As Sergio Perez throws one down the inside on the medium tyre against Alex Albon, who decides actually to give up going around the second part of the chicane and cuts it through, which allows George Russell through as well. George Russell will be saying, thank you very much for that, because of course he is in a big scrap with Sergio Perez for 8th place. Gap now closing quite quickly. Norris 1.1 behind Max Verstappen, and soon we'll see how much defence Max Verstappen has on that much older hard tyre.
I think we might see Piastri in soon. Here's his radio.
Oscar, do you think there's any chance we can one stop?
I don't think so. Front left is pretty dead.
Understood.
Front left is pretty dead, according to Oscar Piastri. Lewis Hamilton comes into the pit. So Piastri's radio, well, that heavily indicates he's going to need to come in again for another pit stop. He's got a 5.5 second margin to Leclerc. Hamilton has a much better pit stop second time around, and he will feed out in 6th place, just behind Lando Norris. Well, I say just about 15 seconds behind Lando Norris. Then comes Magnussen in 7th, ahead of Perez, who's 8th. Russell is 9th. Albon rounds out the top 10.
The battle that we're about to see between Verstappen and Norris is actually going to, as a late move across from Sergio Perez onto George Russell. Perez, I think, then realised, okay, I was a little bit late there, and moved back to the left. But that could have been a monster incident between the pair here.
He's fighting back.
Is in the box now. Perez is having a look on the outside, Harry, heading down into the chicane.
He fights back, Perez. We'll have the inside through the Curva Grande. That becomes the outside for the second chicane. George Russell then has the advantage, holds that spot, but that could have been a huge incident avoided. 15 laps to go then. Oscar Piastri comes in for a second pit stop and is fed out into the pit lane. Lap 39 of 53. Charles Leclerc takes the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz moves up into second, 10.5 seconds back. Will they have to go again and pit for some new tyres? Piastri feeds out in third ahead of Max Verstappen. Then comes Lando Norris, who is closing in on his championship rival for the 2024 title. There were 70 points between them coming into this Grand Prix. How will it end up? Norris could take a sizable chunk away from that advantage Verstappen has, but there's still 15 laps to see how this plays out across this fantastic circuit that the 19 cars remaining in this Formula One race are hurtling their way around. Just the one retirement in the form of Yuki Tsunoda, and don't forget that small threat of rain too, Jenny Gow.
The question is, when are they going to pit Max Verstappen? At the moment, he and Norris are out there on track together. We know Verstappen has to come in for another pit stop. He's done 2 hard tyres. He has to go onto the medium.
We're just getting another look at that almost incident, Alice, between Russell and Perez. And Perez just leaving him a car's width of room. And I think Russell had to force the matter slightly, but they kept it clean. Perez got them better traction out of turn 2, carried the momentum through Curva Grande, but Russell with the better line, the inside line, coming through into the De La Rocha chicane. Right, action brewing now. Lap 40, down the main straight. Verstappen under pressure here from Lando Norris. Verstappen moves to the inside to defend. That forces Norris to the outside with DRS, slams onto the brakes, tries to cut back in on Verstappen. Verstappen gets better traction out of turn 2. Norris trying to stay with him, couldn't find a way through there, arcs through the right-hander of Curva Grande. Can he try and find a way through the second chicane where Norris lost the lead on lap 1 to his teammate? Can Norris pull the same move up on Verstappen? No, he can't. Verstappen holds the position, but that Red Bull not looking particularly comfortable through the chicane.
No, and it's going to play in the hands of the Ferraris as well. Will they try and keep it on a one-stop? I have a feeling that this we could have some tears here between Verstappen and Piastri. That was quite an aggressive defence from Max Verstappen. He's almost saying to Lando, we're fighting for the constructors, we're fighting for the drivers, but you've got to fight even harder than that, as he swings into the Ascari chicane, kicking up dust into the face of Lando Norris. He's trying to desperately break the toe here. The McLaren charging down behind him into the final corner. He's extremely close. He's not been this close all race to the back of that Red Bull. Is going to be a hard defence going down. Leclerc is streaming away out front at the moment.
Lando Norris will get another dose of DRS down the main straight on Max Verstappen, who is ahead of him. Verstappen once again moves to the right-hand side on the road, but there's nothing he can do into the braking zone. Norris takes the position. Verstappen tries to fight it round the outside, but the McLaren is through. The papaya gets the position on the Red Bull, and Norris is finally through on Verstappen, up into 4th place. The Dutchman down to 5th. This is not the race Max Verstappen was hoping to have, as Norris now will try and pedal his way up the road to catch up to his teammate Oscar Piastri, who is 4 seconds up the road. Is that the battle for the net lead? It's the 2 Ferraris, 1 and 2, Charles Leclerc with a 10.8 second advantage over Carlos Sainz. But how are the 2 Ferraris getting on with their tyre management? Can they make it to the end without stopping again? Jenny Gow.
Charles Leclerc, 25 lap old hard tyres. Carlos Sainz, 21 lap old hard tyres. I wouldn't expect them to be able to get to the end of this race. Speaking to Pirelli, they didn't expect them to go that long. But lighter fuel loads, what can they do out there? They're fighting for the win.
Yeah, you're right, Jenny. But Oscar Piastri is 1.6 seconds quicker than Charles Leclerc on that last lap round. 1.3 seconds quicker than Carlos Sainz. So he's fastest on track by far at the moment is Oscar Piastri.
Showing that the new hard tyre will give you so much more pace.
Verstappen comes into the pits yet again, as he has to, and he moves on to the medium tyre and a much slicker pit stop this time around from Red Bull. 2.3 seconds. He should feed out behind Lewis Hamilton. He does indeed. Verstappen now at the pit exit. There's a sizable gap to Kevin Magnussen, who's holding on to 7th, but I fear the Dane may well lose that position now as George Russell gets the DRS, moves to the inside of the Haas driver, and before they even get into the braking zone, the Mercedes is through on the Haas. So that is Russell up to 7th, Magnussen down to 8th, with Perez looming in 9th.
The Ferraris are going to try 1. They think it's difficult, but they might as well try. So this is qualifying now. In the words of Stu, just fly fast.
I won't translate that last bit of the message for you. I think you get that one. But that is game on. Why not? On Ferrari home soil, Charles Leclerc, who hasn't won here, well, his first win here was 5 years ago, and the last Ferrari win here was back in 2022. Carlos Sainz, who is 10.6 seconds down the road, could well play a fantastic team game here and perhaps hold up Piastri and the two McLarens on what is his 30th birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Carlos Sainz. But unfortunately, Carlos, you're being caught quite quickly by Oscar Piastri. I think I'm going to be brave with 10 laps to go. I think Leclerc's got this. I think it's going to be so hard for Oscar Piastri because he's going to have a fight with Carlos Sainz. He is much quicker last time round then, 1.3 seconds quicker than Charles Leclerc, 1.5 seconds quicker than Carlos Sainz. So it's doable, but of course his tyres are going to start to get older and older, and actually Oscar Piastri is setting the timing screen alight again. He's on course for another fastest lap of the race.
10 laps to go until we see the checkered flag for the Italian Grand Prix and how things can change. Could we see a Ferrari 1-2 finish on home soil to the elation of the Tifosi that pack out the grandstands? It's Leclerc with the advantage on the road and Sainz in second, but the question is, can their tyres hold up long enough to see the checkered flag? Piastri is closing with the fastest lap in third. Lando Norris is not too far behind in fourth, having started this race on pole position. Now looks like he'll be lucky if he can cling on to a podium place. Hamilton is fifth, then comes Verstappen, Russell is seventh, Magnussen eighth, Perez is ninth, then comes Alex Albon, who rounds out the top 10. Ricciardo is 11th, Franco Colapinto is in 12th on his debut for Williams, Alonso is 13th, Ocon 14th, Stroll rounds out the top 15, then it's Gasly, Joe, Bottas and Hulkenberg. Lap 44 of 53. We're just going to dip into 5 Live momentarily if I stop talking. Leclerc leading Sainz, Piastri, Norris and Hamilton the top 5. As Verstappen just takes the fastest lap. Apologies for that. We thought we were going to have to do a feed into 5 Live, which didn't quite happen. That may well happen again towards the end of the race. So just as a pre-warning for you there, Verstappen's just taken the fastest lap. Piastri is closing in on Sainz, 0.7 of a second. Can Sainz hold up the Australian? Can he help his teammate eke out even more of a lead than he currently has and help Leclerc perhaps ease off on the pace to try and manage his tyres to the end and secure a Ferrari victory? Onto the main straight we go. Lap 45 of 53. How things can change. Are we looking at a Ferrari win on home soil? We'll wait to see. Less than 10 laps to go. It's Charles Leclerc who leads by 11 seconds. Piastri is third, Norris fourth, Hamilton is fifth. Verstappen is sixth. Charles Leclerc with over 11 seconds of a gap between himself and Sainz. Piastri is vying for a way through. It's lap 45 of 53. How things can change. Are we looking at a Ferrari win on home soil? Can Charles Leclerc manage his tyres to the end without stopping again? That's what he's trying to do. But Piastri is chasing both Ferraris right now to try and stop them. We got there in the end, didn't we? Piastri down the back straight towards the Ascari chicane, makes the move stick finally and gets through and splits the Ferraris. Piastri up to second. It's lap 45 of 53. Piastri has to overcome over 11 and a half seconds to catch Charles Leclerc and stop the Ferrari driver from winning on home soil. Sainz is third. Norris still a few seconds back from Carlos Sainz in fourth. Hamilton rounds out the top five. Alice, this race has turned on its head for Ferrari, hasn't it? In the best way possible.
Yeah, it has, but we've still got a few number of laps left to go, so I'm going to have a real close look at this timing screen. Last time round, Oscar, of course, he was challenging, tucked up to the back of the Ferrari lap times. He was 1/10 of a second quicker than Charles Leclerc as we wait through the sectors to file through at the moment. A couple of tenths quicker in the first sector. He's got 11.4 second gap to close up, Jenny. That's going to be hard.
Tell you what, Bottas started this race and went on the hards and went 34 laps at the beginning with full fuel. So now, looking at Leclerc, he's done 30 laps on those hard tyres. I think he can make it. It's whether he's got the pace to stay out in front, as you say.
Just to bring you up to speed what's happening in the lower half of the top 10, Kevin Magnussen is 9th for Haas. 2 valuable points on offer for him against Alex Albon, who is in 10th with a valuable point up for grabs. Neither driver has stopped for a second time, so both are trying to cling on to those final points paying positions in what could literally be the difference, millions make the difference in those Constructors' Championship positions with the points that Haas and Williams are collecting. So let's see if they can hold on to those, but that is a big battle brewing for 8th and 9th. But the battle brewing once again. Carlos Sainz on the back foot now, managing his tyres. He hasn't been able to carry as much pace as his teammate, and Lando Norris is closing in on his former teammate. Sainz third, Norris in fourth, out through the first chicane, onto the accelerator, up through the gears, arcing through the right-hander of Curva Grande as they hurtle towards the second chicane. The De La Roja chicane, turns 4 and 5. Norris not quite finding a way through just yet.
No, he's not. Let's hear from Leclerc.
And brake balance +1.
Leave me alone with this. If I don't do things you ask, don't ask 10 times.
So Leclerc getting a bit aggy, we could say, with his race engineer. He needs to just concentrate now, and I understand his engineers obviously keeps giving him a radio message, and Leclerc just wants silence. He wants to focus on hitting his braking points, getting to those apexes, getting a clean acceleration on the throttle. 9.5 seconds is the gap there. And it's closing down now as Lando Norris is right underneath the rear end of Carlos Sainz, who's having a look into his mirror, into the parabolica, swinging round. This is going to be so hard to defend. This McLaren, of course, will have the benefit of DRS, but Carlos Sainz actually, Harry, got a pretty decent exit.
Yeah, great straight line speed, but it's not enough to keep Lando Norris behind with that aid of DRS. Swings by Carlos Sainz into the braking zone. Norris makes that look easy. Took him a couple of laps to do it, but Norris back into the podium places. Started this race on pole, of course, and now into third. Sainz down to fourth. Then comes Hamilton in fifth. Verstappen is sixth. Charles Leclerc leads this race and is staring down the barrel of a home victory for Ferrari at Monza. The gap between himself and Oscar Piastri is around about 9 seconds. Last lap around, though, Piastri took over a second out of Leclerc. Is there enough time left in this race for Piastri to close up and pass Charles Leclerc, Alice Powell?
Well, it was 8.5 seconds, but Piastri's in traffic. He's got Stroll, he's got Ocon. Leclerc has cleared those cars. His next port of call is to try and clear Colapinto, who's a little bit further up the road. But traffic could come into play here, Harry, and it has before, and it could come in again. Looking at the sectors, he is faster. So last time round, around 1:22.725 for Oscar Piastri and 1:23.518. So he is closing the gap, but he's got 2 cars that he needs to clear.
49 of 53. That is the lap count. 8.3 seconds between Leclerc and Piastri.
Can people in the background please be awake? I know this is a position, but it's important.
Yes, copy that, Max.
It's a really interesting radio message from Max Verstappen. Can people in the background please be awake? I know this is not a very good position for us to be in, but it's still important. It is still important. 6th place. That's 8 points. Valuable points for Verstappen. Piastri, if he finishes like this, would take 15 points. Bear in mind, Verstappen currently has the fastest lap, so that'll be an extra point gained for Verstappen. All crucial in that championship fight, Alice.
Yeah, points make prizes at the end of the day, and he's getting that extra point for fastest lap, but he's 15.4 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, who in all fairness has had a pretty decent race so far this afternoon, and you can hear the Tifosi screaming, jumping for joy as Charles Leclerc heads down the main straight once again.
Championship standings, if it stays like this, Verstappen would be on 304 points, Norris 240, the difference at 64 points, so he'd close that gap again by 6 points.
Thank you, Jenny Gow, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, also the British racing driver Alice Powell, calling what has been a fascinating Italian Grand Prix, round 16 of 24 in this, the longest season in Formula One history, and this marking the last race of the European season before we head further afield to the flyaways. Azerbaijan, Singapore, America, Mexico, Brazil, all next up as we hurtle towards the end of the season, and we hurtle towards a championship fight in the constructors and in the drivers, with Norris gaining valuable points over Max Verstappen in this race, but neither are on course to take the win of this race. Right now that is going to the man who started this race down in 4th, Charles Leclerc, who still has a lead, just over 7 seconds the gap. Oscar Piastri is closing in on him, but Charles Leclerc is just driving beautifully at the moment, staying within the means, not trying to push too much and take life out of that tyre that he's on, and that's the crucial point around here, with the entire track being resurfaced coming into this weekend. How much that changed the look for the tyres across the weekend so far.
Just updating the Constructors' Championship now. 10 points would be the difference between Red Bull out in front and McLaren chasing them down, and that's come down by 20 points. But I have to fear that should have been more for my 2 penneth.
Yeah, I agree, and actually I'm sat here looking at the gap slowly closing down. 7 seconds with 3 laps remaining. I don't think that's enough time for Oscar to close onto the back of the Ferrari, but I wonder if Ferrari would just sat and waited to see if McLaren would react to boxing, and I'm sure that they will look back and go, maybe we should have just waited for Ferrari to react. And I think, you know, I said earlier on in the race that, yeah, well, we often see Ferrari do some strange things, don't we? And this is not a strange thing. They just waited for McLaren to react, and which I'm trying to think which Grand Prix it was where they made some strange decisions before McLaren. It was several races ago where they just didn't get the strategy right. And
British Grand Prix?
Yeah, you're right, actually, was the British Grand Prix, and I think they've almost panicked a little bit here. 6.1, so it is coming down, but we're coming now down to 2 laps remaining. Oscar is ragging that McLaren. He's setting purple micro sectors, which is that's called, if you could say, the individual corners of the track, but he's not setting overall fastest laps. 1.1 seconds was the time difference between them on that last lap. It looks like, hopefully I'm not going to commentators curse it for Ferrari, but Charles Leclerc could have this in the bag.
Well, Piastri would dearly love to take a second win this season for McLaren. Leclerc would dearly love to take a second win for Ferrari this season. Can either do anything to keep this in the bag. Charles Leclerc so far is the man doing that. 5.2 seconds now, the gap is going down. Leclerc just a few moments ago on the radio wanted to be left alone, being one with the car. and only focusing on every apex, nailing every gear change, making sure he manages his throttle output, not taking too much time and too much deg out of those tyres. 4.7 seconds it comes down between Leclerc and Piastri. Norris is third, Sainz fourth, Hamilton fifth, then comes Verstappen in sixth, still holding that fastest lap, which should see him get the bonus point if he can hold on to it by the end of this race. Russell is seventh, Perez is eighth, then comes Magnussen in ninth, Albon rounds out the point scorers in 10th, Alonso is 11th ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, then it's Colapinto in 13th, Ocon is 14th ahead of his teammate Gasly, then comes Valtteri Bottas in 16th place, Nico Hulkenberg is 17th, and Zhou Guanyu is 19th and last out of the 18th, my apologies, and Stroll is 19th and last out of the 19 drivers still in this race, with one retirement in the form of Yuki Tsunoda. But Charles Leclerc, Alice, is cruising to victory here on the final lap.
He is. 3.7 is the gap now. Oscar Piastri just set his personal best lap of the race, but it's not enough, and Charles Leclerc is coming through the final the final corners, the final time round the Lesmo. It's got my words out in the end, and you can hear the crowd cheering at every part of this circuit, and Monza is about to erupt.
It was an emotional win for Charles Leclerc earlier in this season on his home streets of Monaco as he makes his way through Ascari. It'll be another emotional win, not only for Charles Leclerc, but for Scuderia Ferrari, the Scarlet Red team, to the roar of the Tifosi, who line the grandstands and stand up and applaud their man Charles Leclerc, who has driven superbly round the final corner, foot flat to the floor. The checkered flag waits for Charles Leclerc, who wins the Italian Grand Prix for Ferrari, and the Tifosi explode with elation around this Monza circuit. What a win for Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. Oscar Piastri will have to settle for second place in his McLaren, and Lando Norris, who started this race on pole position, steals the final podium place in third, Sainz fourth, Hamilton fifth, with Verstappen coming home in sixth place. But can Verstappen get the fastest lap? No, he cannot. That will go to his championship rival, Lando Norris, taking valuable points away from the championship leader that remains with Max Verstappen. But the man, Alice Powell, who won't care about that, is Charles Leclerc, slowing right down, waving to the fans as Carlos Sainz joins him, and they go 2 by 2 for Ferrari.
Yeah, and lovely scenes here in Monza, and Oscar Piastri was shaking his head as he came across the line, bowed it as well in disappointment. Here, let's hear from Charles Leclerc.
Ma come mi fai sognare, come mi fai sognare.
Sì, grandissimi, un'altra volta e torniamo.
Grazie Charles. Monaco and Monza the same year.
Mamma mia, questa stagione però è da infarto, tra alti e bassi, mamma mia, c'era come sono belli gli alti. Oh, grazie a tutti, veramente, a tutta l'azienda che ha fatto un lavoro della Madonna per portarci gli upgrade, grazie a voi. C'è ancora tanto lavoro, però a casa nostra, di nuovo, come nel 19. Mamma mia, grandissimi.
So that was Charles Leclerc just saying that he's very happy to win at that race. But
I'm fluent in Italian. Do you want me to translate?
Can you do it?
No, of course I'm not.
But I tell you what, that just highlights, for the man born in Monaco but raised in Italy, when he made his debut for the Sauber Alfa Romeo team as a Ferrari junior through and through. He is Ferrari's golden boy, and it's been a tough few races, but Leclerc has shown how much he can sort of survive in the face of adversity with a car that he has been outperforming on a day where, yes, Ferrari were contenders, but no one, I think, saw Leclerc going that long on a set of hard tyres to take a fantastic win here in Italy, in Monza. Charles Leclerc will stand on top of the podium with the two McLarens either side.
Part of being in the Ferrari Academy is they do like you to learn Italian. So Oliver Behrman is learning it as well and can speak a little bit of Italian. He's part of the Ferrari Academy at the moment. But Oscar Piastri just came in there, smashed into the number 2 board and nearly ran over the scrutineer. Let's hear from Leclerc again.
È grandissima strategia anche, cioè grande tutto, anche la macchina andava forte oggi. Grazie.
Thank you.
I got that one, grandissimo strategy. I think that's a great strategy call. Jenny?
Just points-wise, 8 points now separate in the Constructors' Championship, McLaren, Mercedes to Red Bull Racing. And in the race for the Drivers' Championship, 241 to 303 points. Norris getting that fastest lap at the end, 62 points. I've seen some amazing podiums here. I've seen some amazing first places. This one is going to be emotional.
It certainly is. Charles Leclerc's second win here. He's pulled up to the number 1 spot. You can hear the fans cheering. He takes off his radio. He takes off his drinks tube as well. And this is going to be something special.
You know what I find almost a bit bizarre is that is Charles Leclerc's only 7th career Grand Prix win.
But what a win!
But what a win! As he stands on top of his Ferrari car, fist bumps the air, and you can hear not only the crowd in the grandstand, but he rushes over to his team, and he can barely get amongst them. They all want a piece of Charles Leclerc. What a drive! What a race! Celebrating all things Italy, all things red, all things Scuderia Ferrari at the track where he took that fantastic first win back in 2019 for Charles Leclerc. His last win here, Ferrari's last win here back in 2022. Finally back onto the top step. Well earned from Charles Leclerc.
It was bold. It was so bold from Ferrari, so bold from Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, who finished 4th. That is living the dream. And do you know what? It took every ounce of concentration, dedication, skill to stay on that track. And now the track will be absolutely flooded with the tifosi, the Italian fans, as they celebrate what is a historic victory for Charles Leclerc. The gates are open and the race is on.
Look at them, they are absolutely flooding the track. Some nearly tripping over each other. Take it steady, fans.
Collateral damage is fine.
Yeah, exactly. As Lando Norris congratulates his friend Charles Leclerc, who has, you can see, just looking into his helmet through the visor, his eyes say it all, and the traditional Ferrari flags also taking over the circuit as well, as Fred Vasseur and Zach Brown congratulate each other. And a fantastic job by Ferrari. They waited to see what McLaren would do, and I think McLaren overreacted.
Just to round out the top 10 for you, Verstappen was 6th, Russell 7th, Perez 8th. Albon managed to get Magnussen on, I think it might have even been the final lap. We didn't see it, but Albon 9th, Magnussen getting a point in 10th. So that's Magnussen's first points since Austria. So it's only 1 point, but it's valuable for a team like Haas and valuable for the team like Williams, getting 2 points on the board.
Talking about points as well, it brings Ferrari up to 407 points in the Constructors' Championship, which is only 39 points behind Red Bull. The charge is on to take down Red Bull to see an end to their domination of F1.
3-way title fight all the way to Abu Dhabi?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. We'll sign up for that one. And straight away, the photos being taken with Charles Leclerc. Looking at it, it's like he did have to work hard for that one. He does look a little bit exhausted.
Yeah, he did. And we're going to hear as well from the winning drivers by Nico Rosberg.
Wow, this is Formula One at its very, very best. It's completely unpredictable at the moment. Ferrari catching that surprise win here today. Lando, I'm sure we have to start with that turn 4 overtake that Oscar did on you right after the start. Did he catch you by surprise?
Of course, because he got past. But yeah, I don't know what I should have done differently there. If I brake 1 meter later, we probably would have crashed. So something we'll look at. But I mean, Ferrari just drove a better race today, especially Charles. He did a very good job, so just hats off to them.
Was the one stop ever a possibility for you when you were chatting with your engineers or something?
No.
It was never considered?
I mean, we considered it the whole race, but not possible with the amount of graining that I had. So it's a tough one. We knew it would be tight, but just with our car and some of the limitations we have, it wasn't possible today. So we knew it. We knew that could be a possibility. So I was disappointed, of course, but Ferrari did a better job. They had a better car today, and that's hats off to them.
In order to fight Verstappen for the championship, you really need all the points all the time. And now there's Oscar, who's kind of in between there and taking points away from you as well. What's your thoughts on that?
Well done to him. He did a good job. He got past me, and he deserves it.
All right, thank you very much, Lando. Congrats anyways on third place.
Lando Norris then, I think, frustrated with how that race ended up as the entire circuit gets absolutely mobbed by stands. Let's go back to Nico Rosberg.
Oscar, that was a great race from you. Definitely, I think you did all you could, but I'm sure you're still very, very disappointed with that end result.
Yeah, it hurts. I'm not going to lie, it hurts a lot. Did a lot of things right today. There was a lot of question marks on the strategy going into the race. From the position we were in, with the tyres looking like they did, doing a one-stop seemed like a very risky call, and in the end it was right. So very, very happy with the pace, with the race that I managed to achieve. Just when you finish second, it hurts.
The team had asked you, hey, do you want to try that one stop or not? Do you think in hindsight you should have gone for it, or actually really that tyre was just gone?
In hindsight, yes, but it's everyone's a legend on Monday after the race, or at the checkered flag. And today, unfortunately, we got it a bit wrong, and myself being a big part of that. We had everything to lose from being in the lead of the race. Charles could try something a bit different. He was going to finish third either way, and picked the right gamble today. The mediums were getting destroyed, and even the hards on the Red Bull at the start looked pretty dead, and my front left was pretty heavily grained. Just we didn't expect it to clear back up again, which it did. So painful.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Great drive anyways today, and there's always next race out to try and get that win again. And now we will welcome the winner.
We will welcome the winner shortly with Nico Rosberg, Charles Leclerc.
Charles, you are the king of Italy right now. I mean, wow. That is just so awesome.
It's an incredible feeling. Actually, I thought that the first time would just feel like this, and then the second time, if there was a second time, wouldn't feel as special. But my God, the emotions in the last few laps, exactly the same like in 2019. Just watching the grandstand inside of the track, which is tricky, but incredible. I mean, Monaco and Monza are the two races that I want to win every year. Obviously, I want to win as many races as possible and the World Championship as soon as possible, but these are the two most important races of the season, and I managed to win them this year, so it's so special.
I mean, I wish everybody at home could feel the atmosphere here at the moment. It's just off the charts. And could you feel the tifosi carrying you there in the last couple of laps?
Sì, I tifosi siete incredibili, mamma mia. Come dicevo in inglese prima, la prima volta era veramente speciale, il primo anno in Ferrari, in 2019, era stato un sogno per me. Pensavo che se c'era una seconda volta non sarebbe così speciale, perché la prima è sempre più unica, però quello non era vero, è così sempre speciale, e questo è grazie a voi, con il sostegno, la spinta che ci date tutti i giorni quando veniamo qua. Grazie mille davvero per tutto.
So I'll just translate quickly that, of course, you say the tifosi are just unbelievable, and the power they give you, is just so special. You brought a lot of upgrades here to the car. It seems to be working really so much better. Do you think you can keep challenging for wins now, even if we go to a different track like Baku next?
I don't know because I think our package was working pretty well on a track like Monza. Whether it will be the same for the rest of the season, I doubt so. I still think McLaren are the favourites, but we have done a step forward, that's for sure. And Baku is a pretty nice track for me. I quite like this track, and I've been quite competitive in the past. So who knows? Maybe we can achieve something special again there.
So I'm wishing you a spectacular party tonight, and to all the tifosis as well. I hope you go crazy, you all deserve it, and see you all out next time in Baku.
Grazie mille, grazie davvero, grazie, e forza Ferrari.
Charles Leclerc is the winner in Monza of the Italian Grand Prix. Listen to the tifosi who have flooded the track. Such a special podium, just hovering over the start-finish line. And the ticker tape, the smoke, the fireworks, I'm expecting it all to go absolutely crazy as the tifosi celebrate Charles Leclerc and Ferrari and Harry. It was incredible. Can I just get one superlative from each of you to sum up that race?
Magnifico.
Very good.
Mamma mia.
Lovely. Join us for Baku in 2 weeks' time. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. Absolutely, they're painting the town red. It's Charles Leclerc who's celebrating in Monza. Harry Benjamin called the race, and what a masterclass it was from Charles.
I'm exhausted. I think Charles Leclerc is exhausted as well. That was magnificent, making the tyres last for as long as he did. Ferrari orchestrated that one perfectly, and I think McLaren unfortunately threw that one away.
Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri in second and third place, and Norris just sat there with his head in his hands. Did they throw it away? Is the chase getting away from them?
They definitely threw it away. The chase is not getting away from them though. Red Bull not looking strong at all during that race there, but McLaren, they made a mistake with the strategy there today, Jenny.
So red is definitely the colour at Monza, but which side will take it when it's Liverpool versus Manchester United? That's the question for you guys.